Hello there, Voltage Modular people and Reason people, and welcome to my channel. And today we're going to actually have a closer look at the VM to Reason to VM module, and we'll actually look at the back end. So we do a lot of stuff actually in Reason on getting the data out and back into Voltage Modular. So what I'm actually going to do to start with, I'm actually going to pull myself up a sound here, actually in Voltage Modular. I've got myself some cabinets. Here we go, that cabinet would do. And I've got a feeling it's put it right at the bottom. Yes, it has, doesn't matter. I'm just going to zoom out. I will be zooming back in again. All I want to do is very, very quickly wire up the audio out. Oops. I hold the control key down when I do it. That's why you don't see me drag any cables. And because this is the expander module, it actually it's got like normalized input. So as soon as I start playing, we can actually hear it. So there's just a little keyboard I'm playing. So what we're actually going to do, and the only reason I wired that up to start with, is I'm actually going to very, very quickly wire up my storing forward. So let's zoom back in again for that. So a bit of gate, a bit of note data. Let's wire that up, and I'm just going to input some data into that. And that's all I'm going to be putting in. So I'm going to drop that off. So I don't want any other data coming back into the storing forward. As you can see, it's nothing whizzing around. So in a minute, we're going to go off and we're going to do some stuff actually in Reason itself. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this gate and I'm going to put it out of this here, which says 2R, which is number 4. So my audio, so my pitch is coming through my VM to Reason. That's going out of audio port number 3. I know it says 2L there, but I've already converted it in the Reason world. Let me push that keyboard out of the way because we don't need that anymore. So what we need to do now is just flip back into the Reason world, he says. And here we are in the Reason world. And so we just flip round to the back. You can see where I was talking about ports 3 and 4. Or in fact, it'd be these 3 and 4 ports down here. So the first thing I'm actually going to grab myself is I'm going to use a Thor. I'm going to hold down the shift key as I create it so it doesn't do any routing. And I'm also going to just right click and select reset device. So just quickly reset that device. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take 3 out, and I should be able to zoom in here a bit. Here we go. I'm going to take 3 out, and I'm going to actually put it into audio in 3. Obviously it can go into any of these, but the only reason I'm going to keep it is 3 and 4 because I'm going to have 3 and 4, 3 and 4, and I'm also going to be taking some outputs and I'm going to keep them as 3 and 4 as well, so it all makes perfect sense. And in fact, why don't we wire them up now? So I'm going to right click this and I'm going to combine these two units into one. Obviously Thor does not have to be inside of this combinator. Show programmer, and I might have to zoom out so I can get everything on the screen at the same time. Sorry to say that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 3 out and I'm going to put that into CV in. So that's the note. And then I'm going to take CV4, which is the gate data, and I'm going to push that into there. So yes, I'm playing my storing forward, which is going to be coming out. I'm going through Thor, back into the combinator, which is then going to be playing the strings inside Voltage Modular. And you're probably thinking, what is the point of doing all of that? Well, let's first of all wire things up and then we can go through reasonings why I'm doing the way I'm doing it afterwards. So audio in number 3, destination. Oh, sorry, because my Zoom program's messed me up. There we go. That's going to be number 3 as well. So this is audio number 4. CV number 4. So it makes it a bit easier when you... So we've already taken this out, gone all the way around, coming back in again, going through the player, and we're already getting that. What I'm actually going to do now is I'm actually going to add myself, I've got this little bass thing I've got. Let's see where that's added that, probably right at the very bottom. Yeah, let's grab that and pull that up. And let's put it up one more. There we go. All right, we put it above, not a problem. And what I'm going to do with this device, what I'm going to do with this device is I'm going to, in a minute, you can see me in Reason, I'm going to come out the bottom of that scales and chords and put it into a different player stack. And I'm probably going to use something like the dual arpeggiator or something on it. and then I'm going to pull that data back in via the audio sources. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to quickly grab that, and I'm probably going to put it into that. I'm going to pull that down for the moment, and then I'm going to bring my gate in via this input, and I'm going to put it into that one there and that one there, and that should get my bass working. Ooh, is that normalized or not? I can't remember. That's normalized. I thought it was, but just in case it's not, let's just wire it up. So it might sound confusing because obviously at the moment this isn't going to play, he says. And let's bring that back to the top again. Let's bring this storing forward back to the top. So when I hit my output, as you can hear, we can't hear that, which is correct. So what I want to do now is I want to, I'm going to grab and steal the data coming out of the scales and chords and push it across. So first thing I'm going to grab from my library is a Hammond, and I'm going to have the mod panel 8 because that's an instrument, and you can stack players on top of that. And I'm now going to stack a couple of players on top of that. I'm going to put a dual arpeggiator on there, and then I'm going to come down here and grab my favorite MIDI CV converter. I'm going to put that on top, and actually I'm going to, whoops. There, made a copy. And I'm sorry, I'm being lazy making the copy here. So this is MIDI out, it's going into MIDI in. And then this one here, I'm going to grab and put it underneath the scales and chords here. I'm now grabbing my scales and chords and going through this dual arpeggiator. What I'm going to do with this dual arpeggiator, let's turn that. Leave that as array. I want a pattern. I'm going to have some steps of 4, and I don't know. Which I don't want to change that there. I want here, short, long, short, something like that. We'll come around and we'll come back and play with that. So I'm taking this data here is now going to be driving the arpeggiator. That's going to come down and talk to the mod panel, and we now need to get this data out of here and back into, I've also made myself a duplicate down here, and we need to get that back into our voltage modular. So to do that, I'm going to first of all, I'm going to grab myself a robotic beam. I'm going to use air converter for this, and I want the CV to audio. So I'm going to have my note, and I'm going to put my note in, oh, let's go into 1 and 2. So that's going to be note. That's going to be my gate, and then we want that to go into 1 and that into number 2. Flip back round, back into here we go, and let's have a listen to what we got. Of course, I'm way ahead of myself here, aren't I? And I've been a very, 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 very silly boy, which is great. It's good to see these things. I'm actually going to take that input and now push that into my audio and actually convert the pitch correctly. As you could hear, it wasn't sounding nice at all. It was sounding totally out. Hey, what a difference. So very straightforward. So if you stop to think about it now, it all may seem a bit confusing. I even confused myself a little bit there, so I jumped ahead. So yes, we've got data coming out of Volta Modular, which is coming in and going into the combinator at the top. From that, we're going through and talking to our scales and chords. We're then nicking some of this MIDI data and we're pushing it out, and we're talking obviously to this MIDI converter and then going through this dual arpeggiator, which is going into our mod panel, which is being converted by our CV to audio here. We could use a Thor as well, and we're bringing that back into Modular, voltage modular, which is obviously driving the bass, and we're also driving the other strings directly, which is coming from the player device. But all obviously the notes are coming from the storing forward and being sent out. So it's a simple little loop, but I think it's a very effective little loop, and without a doubt, we could take this a lot further. So what I'm going to set up next, I'm going to set up a way that I can input my keyboard and use the input from my keyboard to transpose the data that's coming out of this storing forward. Typically, the device we're about to use in a minute, which is called a transer, I would use, say, multiple storing forwards or multiple little step sequencers, and I'll have the output of one going into the transer, which then transposes the data down to like virtually 0 volts, and then you can add that voltage onto this voltage, because it doesn't stay constant 0 volts, because obviously it's moving, but it's only then transposing it a small amount. Because obviously if I was to take this exact data, let's say duplicate it and put it in here, you're going to shift everything up by several octaves, and we don't want to do that. We just want to transpose it either by semitones or maybe just by an octave, but we don't want to go several octaves. And at the moment, I can't have my keyboard coming in via any of these methods, because obviously I'm playing the strings further down, and that's how they're hooking into it. So I'm going to bring my keyboard in via one of these audio sources. Because it's going to be coming in via Reason, I'm going to have to obviously transpose. I'm going to have to convert the data into Modular's pitch range, and then I can use my transer, hopefully with this one, and I can start transposing this data. So let's actually jump into the Reason world, because that's where we're going to have to start off, and set that side up, and then we can come in and set this side up. So what I'm going to need over here is, believe it or not, is just another Hammond. Can I get away with just copying this? Or is it going to make a complete duplication of all the players on top? Let's put it over here. Yeah, it's made a duplication of all the players on top. It's not a problem. I'm just going to delete them out. So what I'm going to actually do with this particular device, I'm only going to be interested in my note data, and in fact, why don't we drag that down and put it just below here, so we can use this. So we've already got this converter. So I'm only interested in my note data coming out. I'm going to make sure that I've got MIDI focused on this. So obviously by clicking that, and now if I just play any note on my keyboard, yeah, cool, it's coming in. I can see that little tag moving. And so now we need to make sure we get this back inside Voltage Modular. So as I'm using port 3, I'm going to put it into port 3, and we're ready to wire up inside. So we're now coming in this port here. So the first thing I'm going to need is another one of these. So I'm just going to hold down my Alt key and just create a copy of that. So that's going to come in there. The other device I'm going to need is, I think it's under utilities, there it is, it's my transer. Quite straightforward, so I'm going to take that pitch, plug into there, and now I've got my offset, and I'm going to push that offset out into here. So at the moment, if I make sure I hit, so I just turn into play my keyboard, so I'm just making sure I'm hitting C3, because that's my root key. So if I hit C3, basically 0 volts is going to come out here, so it's all going to sound the same. So any key now I play will transpose around that mark. So let's put it on and see what happens. transposing it. I must admit, I couldn't get my timing right. I am running DX drivers because obviously I'm recording to OBS, so the latency I get from my keyboard is way off, and obviously trying to time it with this particular storyboard, it didn't quite sound 100% right. But you could actually hear I was actually transposing using this kind of method. So let's actually take this project totally sideline it. Let's actually go and do something totally different. One of the things, I released a little track at Christmas time. There was always meant to be a follow-up breakdown video of that particular track. It was such a simple track. It was just 4 chords used throughout, and it's the same 4 chords, even in the chorus, it's the same 4 chords, just speeded up. What was clever, if I can use that, I'm going to have to use that. What I thought was clever about that particular track was I used one combinator for everything. So all the drums are inside the combinator, or I was controlling the drums from that combinator. The same with the pads, the strings, and the lead, the bass line, everything. And I played it live, and that's what made that track actually clever. But I never got round to doing that video. I did that first bit of the video, and I was always going to do the breakdown video, and I didn't. So I'm going to use some of the principles I use in that kind of combinator here in Voltage Modular. In Reason, I use an A/B switch and a janitor, and with the janitor I'm using the attack and the decay a lot. And what that allows me to do, that allows me to take fluctuating signals with the A/B switch and actually turn it into a constant value. So if I was to do it in Voltage Modular, I will admit I'd probably use this little device here. This is a slew processor, and this is, as I say, very, very similar to the attack and decay, what they call it in the janitor, where obviously we've got a rise rate, i.e. your voltage is increasing, and we've got a fall rate when your voltage is coming down, and we can actually slew them, or it's just over time. We're smoothing that signal out over time. And as I say, that's how we do it in Reason. I say with janitor and the A/B switch is quite a nice way of doing things. So let's actually build ourselves something here in Voltage Modular, doing the same sort of thing. And I'm going to build it a little bit weird, because I'm going to build it just using the nucleus devices. So just in case there's some people out there with some free stuff, they may not have this, but if you've got the nucleus stuff, obviously you could be replacing this with something else anyway. But let's pretend. And so the first thing I'm going to want is, I'm going to want a way that I can give myself a constant figure value. And so I'm actually going to use this 8-step sequencer, and you might be thinking, how am I going to get a constant value out of his? Well, we've got this CV out, and in fact by pushing that all the way up, I've now got myself a solid 5 volts coming out of there. And I am going to just quickly bring up a visualizer just so you can sort of see what's going on. Obviously you don't need this at all to make any of this work. So there we go. So there we go, we've got ourselves a nice constant 5 volt. And the nice thing about this, obviously you can break it down to a 2 volt or a 1 volt. The other device which works really well with this particular setup is an attenuator. So let's grab that, there we are. And so I would tend to put it this way, so we can actually control the voltage. And you may look at this and think, well, we can move this here and control the voltage, which is actually true. However, this is going to be stepped. So this is stepped in the pitch range, whereas obviously this would be a lot smoother for what you're after. And in fact, one of the tricks I tend to do is, because you can have multiple outputs going into an input. So I don't know if I can actually do this. Let's try this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yay, I've done it. So I've didn't know you could do that. Yeah, I've clicked on there, and I've actually controlled and clicked 4 times. So I've now got 4 volts going into this port here, and I've now got 4 volts going into this port here, and I've got 1 volt going into this port here. And by doing it that way, and obviously I could wire this up into here as well. So there's my 5 volts, but I've got a lot more control over that voltage, and you can be really, really precise of what you wish to set that to. And of course, if you want to go below 4 volts, you could just, well, you just drop one of these off, and that's now 3 volts plus your 1, and so on and so forth. So I'm not going to dwell on that too much, but because I'm just interested in using my 5 volts straight, so I don't have to mess around. But I just thought it's something worth mentioning. So the next thing I'm going to do is I want this gate data, but obviously this gate data's got gaps in it, so I want this gate data to fire off and at least stay above a certain threshold, and then I'm going to use this solid value to actually send out and go to a drum machine. Because if that drum machine's got fluctuations, well, maybe we could demonstrate it with the fluctuations and how it doesn't really work, and then how it would work with a solid signal. So to get this signal a little bit stronger, so it's not going all over the place, I'm actually going to add myself an envelope. There we go, grab ourselves an envelope, let's push it over this side. And yeah, I'm going to whack up my release. So if I now take this out and put that out to there, obviously if I click on, yeah, it's going to be a bit noisy, but if you notice the signal, so we've got the signal going nice and slow, brilliant. So as soon as I hit play, it's going straight away, fluctuating a bit, doesn't matter. The reason it's fluctuating because obviously the gate's going on and off, so it's going to be a bit of fluctuation, but it's not dropping below a particular threshold. So now what I need is the equivalent of an A-B switch here. And what I'm actually going to use, what I'm going to actually use for that is I'm going to use one of my flip-flop, and I'm going to use the flip-flop switcher. Again, this is one of my devices. And we have this override. So I'm going to take this data from here, which is going to go into my override, and I'm just going to very, very slightly offset it. There we go. And it's gone into what we call a flop mode. So in flop mode, that's off. So I'm going to turn everything off, so everything's turned off. I need my 5 volts, which is down here. My 5 volts, let's put that into my in. So when we go into flip, i.e. when we hit play, we're going to get a constant 5 volts coming out of this wire. And I'm going to send this out of, I'm going to send it right out of the last one, so that's going to be 8. So we can just quickly prove this is going to go into flip as soon as I hit that. Excellent. Turn it off and it stays in the flip mode for a certain amount of time and then goes into the flop, and that's what I want. So that's going to allow me effectively, okay, in this project I probably am going to take the release down a little bit more, but it allow me to say play certain things and I can take hands off and carry on playing, and it's going to carry on sending this signal out, and in this case it's going to carry on playing the drums until I'm totally finished and I leave it alone, and then it'll turn off on its own. It means I don't have to have loads of on-offs or anything. It's just going to do it on its own. So let's now jump into Reason and set it up in the Reason side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab myself an instrument and, sorry for the very, very small writing, but that's how it works in Reason. I don't know. What should we go for? Something like Vice or... Hey, let's go for Vice. It's got that kind of feel to it, this sort of sound. So great. What I'm going to need, I'm going to take that constant figure. So we've got a constant figure which is coming out here, and I need it to go into here. And obviously I can't just put it straight into there. I'm going to need to convert it. So I could put it into input number 1 and quickly convert input number 1. So input number 1, should be able to zoom in here for you, there we go. And we're going to want to send that out to CV1. Here we go, CV1. And we're going to take CV1 out. And we're going to put it in and hold that open. Now the other piece of data I'm going to need to go into here is I'm going to need my good old CV8 That's what I like the best. There we go. We always have to give a woohoo when that comes into one of my videos. Anyway, and we're going to put that onto that, and I'm going to change the notes. So that's going to be around about, I think, I'm going to have to be up into the 60s. Here's the device. Is this not come up on your screen? Sorry. This is the problem when you open brand new things. They come up on the wrong screen. So we're going to want something a little bit different. So that's what I want. So that is going to be around about the 65 CV mark. I might be off. I might have to bring this down up because this might end up playing a key above or below it. But let's actually see what happens. Now, theoretically, he says, if he clicks on the right screen, theoretically, this should start working. Again, if I click on the right screen, that's quite funny. The reason it stopped is I actually hit a note on my keyboard thinking, right, I'm going to transpose it, but obviously, as this was the last device I actually added into Reason, it's moved my MIDI focus from this, from my hammer, obviously down into the drums, and that's the issue I got. So, again, nice and simple. Everything we've been doing, I think it's been nice and simple, and you can just keep extending this and building this up. And as I say, I'll probably bring in another storing forward, and I'll probably actually program that at a very slow rate and then put that through the transer, and then the transer will then be more in time of when we're actually changing the pitch, rather than me trying to use the keyboard to try and change it, because my timing's a little bit out because of, yeah, I'm going to use the excuse because of my DX drivers. They really do throw things off. But I have to record, so there we go. So anyway, I will end it here. If not, I will just keep going on for hours and hours and hours. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy, and hope you enjoy my products. Bye for now.